Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Julie Mann. I'm also known as the Habit Fixer, and I love working with women who really want to regain their mojo and age well. How do I do that? With EFT, which is a really simple tapping technique, nutrition, skincare, and digital products. And today, my guest is the awesome, the legendary Tom Jepson. Hi, Tom.
Good morning, Julie. Thank you. It's a wonderful introduction. I don't think anyone's ever described me as legendary, so thanks for that.
Well, the thing about Tom is that he's a coach, but he's not just any coach. He's a creative coach for creative rebels, aren't you?
I am indeed. I am indeed. We bring a bit of ourselves into this, Julie. That's what it is.
I can tell you're creative because all the things you've got in the background.
There's Lego. There's a guitar. There's actually a pile of pens under the desk that I've moved out of the way just for, neatness sake.
Brilliant. Okay, so I know that today you're going to talk about habits for a balanced life, and don't we all want
Yes.
a balanced life? So I'm just going to hand straight over to you.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to share some thoughts on this, because it is one of the things, one of the few drums that I consistently beat with the people with whom I work. Because when we get into a space as self-employed people, and even people who aren't self-employed, people who are still, in someone else's game, when we are doing things for ourselves, we can find ourselves in a little spiral of everything all at once. And I want for people, for individuals to feel more balanced in what they're doing, but also to work out really what that looks like for themselves. Okay. So when we think about this kind of idea of balanced life, the thing we've heard for years, eons, is this thing about work-life balance. All right. It's not a theory to which I prescribe, because it says that these two things exist separately. That work and life are mutually exclusive. They never cross paths, which we all know ain't true. It's just not true. All right. So when I think about this idea of balance, it's about everything being in its right place. Everything having a spot in your existence that, means that it's going to be where you need it when you need it. So we work, we play, and we live, and we do all the things that make us us. And to try and have to try and separate ourselves into different boxes feels quite unfair. So the way that I tend to think about this idea of balance is that we have ratios of things. We have an amount of work that we do in a day. We have an amount of other responsibilities that we have in a day. We have an amount of things that make us us in a day. Not everyone has the same 24 hours. We have a block of 24 hours as determined by our calendars, our whatever, but not everyone's 24 hours is the same. They're filled with different things, different aspects, different responsibilities and roles. And experience has taught me that we can kind of forget about that stuff, because when we think about the ratios in cooking, we chuck stuff in a pot in the right ratio, and then we stir it all together, and it comes out as something else. So the idea of balance in life, I guess, is all about finding the right ratios of the stuff that you want and that you don't want. You can let that stuff go, and making sure that you can understand it as something that you can learn and evolve and grow. It doesn't need to be fixed, is what I'm trying to say with that. We have our ratios, but as we move through our lives, we get to a place where we need to dial something up. or dial something down. You know, you've got 2 burners on the stove. I'm going to use a lot of food chat because I love to eat and I love to cook, but you have 2 burners on your stove. You know, you might want to, at some point, you may want to turn one up to get the pot boiling a little more. You might want to turn another one down because you don't want it to overcook. But you know, at the end of the day, at the end of when you're making that meal, those things are going to come out and contribute to the whole. So you work with what you've got. You find ways to maneuver these things. And as I said before, it doesn't need to be fixed. It does not need to be final. It is what it is in the moment. You know, we're talking about habits within these things. And, you know, what are habits? They're behaviors, they're patterns, they're routines, right? And for me, one of the ways that I've kind of found that balance is achieved is by kind of clearly denoting the little things that I need to do for myself to move between these different ratios of activity. So there might be some family things that I do in the morning. Every morning, I have kids, they go to school, we have to get them set up for that. But that pattern of activities then leads into the rest of the day, which is then mine. So we start to build that momentum around those things. And that then becomes a behavior that I can anticipate, so that I can then go, right, okay, this is coming up. We know we've got to get the school runs done. We've got to get the packed lunches made. We've got to get the coats on. We've got to make sure everyone's teeth are brushed, whatever. And that little block of behavior builds, that little bit of ratio of the day, a couple of hours we have in the morning, that bit's eaten that part of the day in a good way. Another foodie chat. So I think for anyone who is trying to establish what balance looks like for them, you can think about these chunks of time where you know your responsibilities and your roles are going to show up. So maybe you do have kids. Maybe you got to get them out of the house in the morning. Allow yourself to be in that. Be in that moment. And look at the little patterns and the little behaviors that you do, so that you know that when you're expending those particular things, you're not trying to shoehorn in anything else, which might in turn overbalance that particular part of the day, you know, over season the pot, if you will. And by working through these patterns, these behaviors, these habits, you can really start to understand what does balance mean for you. You start to learn where your day begins. Your day begins and ends. I know for me personally, my day kind of starts at 9:30 in the morning and ends at 2:55 before I leave the house to go and pick the child up from school. But in that time, that's my time to put everything else in. So let's talk practically, because this is, I'm aware I've kind of fluffed on for a few minutes about balance, ratios and food things, but how do you do it? How do you get there? And for me, the biggest thing is boundaries. And I know, yes, I'm a coach, you're a coach. There are probably other coaches listening, and people talk about boundaries as a big thing. When I talk about communicating your boundaries clearly, it isn't for other people as much as it is for yourself. One of the reasons why I say to people, well, my day starts here and ends here, it's not really for them, it's for me. Because I build that pattern. I build that momentum around this little window of time, so that I can go, right, here is when I'm available to show up for this stuff. And I know that the stuff which will appear within this window of time probably isn't going to eke out into the either end. I know that before 9:30 in the morning, I'm not going to try and look at my laptop because it'll make my head hurt and things won't get done. So I'm just not going to do it. And after that time, when the kids are at home, I'm probably not going to look at my laptop then either, because I've shifted gear into a new part of the day. New behaviors, new patterns, new habits are needing to be enacted at that point. So communicating those boundaries to allow you to shift gear is really important. When we talk about shifting gear, think about changing speed. So finding yourself some little cues which will allow you to change speed can be really, really helpful, I have found. So as an example, step back in the house after the school run, I'll go to the kettle, I'll make a cup of coffee. But I'll be really methodical about making that cup of coffee, because I know that actions, the steps that I go through to make quite a nerdy cup of coffee will then cue into my head that actually when this is done, I can then go and settle down, sit down, get some work done. It's just a little pattern of activity that allows me to go from, right, I'm going 3,000 miles an hour trying to make sure 2 young people get out of the house in time, to, all right, you can move slightly slower now and think about what else you're doing. And one of the major things as well as boundaries, is actually taking time away from work. Okay, I know that we're coming back around to the whole work-life balance thing. Work is part of your life, but being able to say, actually, I'm not going to do the job now is really important, because especially for creative people, and not to discredit anyone who is not working in a service-based creative business, but people who do that are kind of on all the time because the ideas machine is always churning. But giving yourself time when you're not working, you're not sitting with your laptop on your knee, you've cast your phone somewhere else in the room, you're just focused on parking your bum on the sofa, binging something on Netflix. You're not multitasking with another ratio. You're not trying to mix up your flour and your butter all at once. Use tech. That's a very concise point. Use the things you have at your disposal to allow you to take some of the heavy lifting off your plate. Use your Google Calendar. Other calendars are available. Use your diary booking system. Use the do not disturb setting on your phone. You don't need to be available to everyone all the time, because as soon as you do that, you've got other stuff eking in that's going to shift the balance in what you're trying to achieve. To use the things you have at your disposal to make it easy for yourself to do what you want to do when you can do it, and what you need to do when it's time to do it. And to kind of round out this little journey through finding balance, I'd say that I know it's not easy. This journey that I've been on, we're talking nearly 15 years worth of trying to find the right angles, the right ratios, the right patterns to get to where I am today. No, it's not easy. But I think for anyone who says, no, I just can't do that, I'd love you to try and think about why you can't do it. What are the realities that are really stopping you from making these small moves? They don't need to be big sweeping things. You don't need to chuck everything off your desk and go, I'm creating more balance today. But seriously, what are the small things that are actually stopping you? Because if you cannot find for yourself, and be honest, if you can't find an answer that doesn't feel like an excuse, you have no reason not to start now. And I can say with almost 100% certainty that you will feel better for doing it. So there we go. It is possible to find a little balance.
Oh, Tom, I really love the creative way that you looked at that. I know you're a big foodie, but
Yes.
it really just sounds like life can be this movable feast, and it can really be something that we create that is delicious, and every day is different. And I think that's such a great thought for me, because it's very easy to go into our day thinking it's a set thing, but it has to be movable, because circumstances change, stuff happens that's unforeseen, and we need to be flexible and maybe change our plan at a moment's notice. So I love the way you talked about that. There's almost a sort of it's okay then feeling about it. Yeah,
absolutely. You can relax into it, because as you say, things will come out of the woodwork that kind of send you off course a little. But if you're a bit accepting that it's not fixed or final, God, it's a heck of a lot more easy to deal with.
yeah, let's make our life absolutely delicious in every single way. So Tom, thank you so much for those brilliant habits that you shared. All your information will be down below this video, as will mine. So please check Tom out. And, he's up to so much brilliant stuff. If you've really enjoyed this video, please subscribe. And if you really enjoyed it, then why not share it? So Tom, all there is for me to say is thanks again. And thank you everyone else for watching.